All right, hi everybody. So welcome to the third Jubilee Design Lecture Series. So thanks for being with us, as always. So today we have a very interesting and important guest, Maria Claudia Clemente. She's one of the founding directors of Labics. Labics is a famous architectural firm based in Rome. It is actually an architectural and urban planning firm, to be very precise. It was founded in 2002. Please, Claudia, correct me if I'm saying like imprecise things. And Labic expresses the concept of a laboratory, a testing ground for advanced ideas, combining the theoretical approach with applied research. The field of interest of the office extends from the interior small scale to the scale of urban master plans, going through the different scales and complexities of the project. They deal with housing, interiors, master plan, mixed use, office, public spaces, urban design, and much more. For those of you who are a little bit familiar with Rome, they designed the Città del Sole, close to the Tiburtina train station. So if you have a chance to go there, please remember that they designed it. It's a very interesting example. And so the lecture is going to be about La Nuova Passeggiata Archeologica, translated the new Archaeological Promenade. Claudia will give a lecture focused on presenting the winning project of the design competition for the Concorso per la Nuova Passeggiata Archeologica, analyzing its various aspects from the urban architectural and archaeological elements, concluding with environmental considerations. Furthermore, the lecture will also illustrate the project's evolution from the competition phase to the submission of the technical and economic feasibility project, highlighting both its strengths and critical issues. So I want to kick off this with saying a lot of thanks to Claudia Clemente for being with us today and accepting our invitation. I'm sure it's going to be another very interesting lecture because it's going to be, again, touching a very, very, very precious element of our amazing town. So Claudia, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Pronto? Yes. Thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you for having invited us here at Arkansas. It's the first time for me. It's a beautiful place. So I'm going to tell you as Francesca was introducing, I'm going to tell you the project, the winning project for the not only Via dei Fori Imperiali. So I will tell you more. Yes. Okay. One thing that is very important for us, how we conceive architecture, how we conceive urban design in a relation with history. And you will see through the project that every time we very often intervene in an existing site, existing building, because this is also very Italian in a way, we rewrite specific locations, specific sites. So before doing the project, we decided to study, of course, what was there before, what is the history of these sites. So the Central Archaeological Area is a site with a very long history. So we'll do a very brief, a very shortcut history of this very complex site. This is important because too often in Italy, every site, especially when you work in very historical or listed site, and we have experience in Palazzo dei Diamanti, we have a lot of experience in very difficult historical site. There's a very protective attitude, conceiving that is the site that you have to keep as it is. But this is not true, because along history in Italy, every site, every building has been transformed already. So there is nothing that is forever. Architecture is not forever, because architecture, differently from art, as it's in its own nature, it's the function, the program, people lives in it. And so it is naturally changes over time. So this is very important to think about it, because when you transform a site so delicate, so important like this one, if you don't think that it's been transformed before, you can be worried, or you have fear, or a little bit, let's say, just have a delicate attitude. No, we didn't want to do that. We did want to transform it. So let's start from the beginning. You know that this is the Archaeological Central Area that is made of two parts. One is the so-called, I'm sure that you have been there. They have been there, okay. One is the Roman Forum, one is the Imperial Forum. The Imperial Forum are the left part, as you know, and they are very important and interesting because they were a kind of big square, public square, surrounded by portico. So they were a big area, public area with portico, and one with the other, they were very separated by different portico. So if you think about this as a sequence of public space, and also the Roman Forum was a big public space. So now they're monument, but they were before public space for the citizen. This is very important to think. Then a long time you see that these are very interesting. One is a print, the other one is Nolly plan. Then for a long period, the central area has been abandoned. It was called Campo Vaccino, was field for the sheep. So it was really abandoned after barbarians came to Rome. So it's been void and all the earth was going up and there were sheep everywhere. There were some columns coming out. So it was not monumental anymore. It was kind of abandoned green area in the middle of the city where people, by the way, used to go to take marble pieces to build other buildings. So you find marble Roman pieces everywhere in Rome because they were stolen every day from the central because it was abandoned. And you see, it's very interesting. That is, there was a very long line of trees. You see that? And this is a photo, so it's incredible how it was. And I'm showing you this photo just to tell you that history changes site. This is a project, beautiful project by a French architect. Then we arrive, then they built on top of this archaeological area an entire neighborhood. It's called Quartiere Alessandrino. So they built on top of it buildings for people, for housing. So they were kind of disappeared. So before it was abandoned, then became a residential area. You can see there on the right side and also on the left side. So you see that now we don't have, there wasn't Via dei Fori Imperiali. And then Via dei Fori Imperiali, as you maybe, I'm sure you know, came out from the idea of Mussolini because from his window at Palazzo Venezia, he couldn't see the Colosseum. So, yeah, there's a dictatorship. So he wanted to clean the city, and it was a huge project. Now could be really, really impossible even to think about it because, no, completely impossible, because he decided to tear down a lot of houses. And when he tore down the houses, the people who lived there, poor them, they were living in their houses. They built the borgate. Maybe you know, the borgate are the popular housing in the periphery. I don't know if some of them are quite important. So they took the people out, they put them in borgate. He decided to demolish a very, very big area of the Via dei Fori Imperiali. No, there wasn't Via dei Fori, a big area of the central archaeological area, and do realize Via dei Fori Imperiali. And this was an amazing project. And so this is what is now the overlay. This is our starting point when we did the competition. And this is very important to keep in mind what was before, to keep in mind the transformation. And this is important also to make a discussion that we try to do, but not so successfully, to be honest, about the role of Via dei Fori Imperiali. Because for us, Via dei Fori Imperiali is just the last layer of a very long history, without any ideological, of course, meaning. No, we are architects. While for a lot of people still, Via dei Fori Imperiali has an ideological and political meaning, which makes this story very, very complicated. Then I will tell you more. So this is the starting point, and you see there is the superimposition of the old plan with in the red is the new one. And this is the starting point of the project, that plan. So this is you see a kind of drawings from above taking the palimpsest, because you see there is an axon of the old and the drawing of the new. because for us, the idea of the superimposition was the starting point. So the following essential aspects were taken in account in the elaboration of the project. The temporal and spatial palimpsest, the respect of different contexts, because this was very important, the scalar dimension of the intervention, and the qualification of the public space. The temporal spatial palimpsest is what I'm telling you about. What is a palimpsest? Palimpsest is a Greek word that means that were the old manuscript that were written on kind of paper, and palimpsest because they used to cancel something and write on top again. So the entire pergamena, this pergamena, I don't know, pergamena paper. This is not a paper, was made of kind of linen. Was a superimposition of different meaning and different text. The respect to different contexts, I will tell you more about that. The scalar dimensional intervention, the competition was very, very complex because was the range of the competition was from the urban scale to the scale of the furniture. So was really complicated. So this is the reason why we decided to work with a lot of different people, engineer of different kind, younger architect, horizontale, that were in charge of some furniture. So we made, and then of course, landscape architect, because there was a lot of land. So the group was very, very big, very complex in terms of composition and disciplines, etc. The qualification of the public space, because this for us was the main topic of the competition. So this is the plan, and again, it's a superimposition of all the new. We did a lot of plan understanding what the layer were. And this is a different context. The different context, this again is very important. The competition was not only for Via dei Fori Imperiali, but was arriving till the Colosseo and then was going down, so-called archaeological ring, anello archeologico, okay? So Via di San Teodoro, Via dei Cerchi, okay? Via di San Gregorio was not in the competition. This was very strange, but along Circo Massimo, Via di San Teodoro, and up to the Campidoglio. This is a very complex area because there are very different content. The first phase, the first part is where the Imperial Forum are. The second part is different, and I will tell you why. There was the Velia, and then there is the ring that goes down along. So different contexts, different project. This is the final plan for the project. There were two main typology of intervention. There were we call structural intervention that are the urban scale. And there were some specific smaller intervention, info point, and then there were the furniture. So it was really, really a scalar intervention. It was to the super huge design of the city, because it is an urban project, to the scale of the bench. So it was kind of complex. Structural intervention. Yeah, because small now. The Fori Imperiali, oh, thank you. Fori Imperiali, let's start from the more complex, and this I can tell you also the start until now. Fori Imperiali project. This is the starting point of our project. So we superimposed the Via dei Fori Imperiali on the plan of the original Imperial Forum, and finding let's say, the coincidence, the overlay. And you see that what we wanted to say is the black, where this, there was two issues. One is the direction of Via dei Fori Imperiali, which is completely different from the Imperial Forum, which are tilting in another direction. And so we tried to create new space that were following the geometry of the Via dei Fori, of the Imperial Forum, and giving new public space to the city that are the black. So this is the plan of this part of the city. So you see there are some wooden, go back a minute to the black scheme, which is clear. So the black are the new square that take the measure and the rhythm of the Imperial Forum. The gray, the gray strip, are the portico in between the different forum. So we wanted to give back to the people who were there the sensation and geometry, understanding where we are. I'm sure that you have been there, but no one understands. Even, you know, that when we decided to do the competition, me and Francesco, we did 3 site visits, and we are Roman. Because, so we should know it very well. But going there, you feel the sensation that you don't understand where you are. You don't understand what was there. You don't understand really what was the physical reality of the forum before. So this is the plan. And you see that there were the wooden square takes the measure of the forum. In between, there are some strips that are planted with some plants that give the rhythm of passing from one to the other one. And the fact that it's rotated, so when you walk, you have something that is in a different direction, in a way asks you to stop and understand and wonder what is happening, why there is something that is a different direction. And this is the point of view, the aerial view of the project. So, and this is the space. And so we also invented some vases. There are some steps where the people can sit and look at the space. And these were, I didn't tell you something very important, that the competition asked for this first part, because there was, and there was a kind of disagreement between the municipality, the city, and the government, the state. So they were asking, because they were worried, and this is the trick point of all the story, they asked that the first part was removable. So we did design, we did design this wooden platform, this is why they are in wood, wooden platform that we could overlay on top of the existing situation. Still, and this is, they were thinking, because the bidding, the bid was organized by the municipality. They were thinking to bypass the government problem. Now, the city is left, the government is right. So there is also another complication. The complexity. So I can tell you about this part of the project. So we want, and this is why we couldn't, of course, you cannot overlay anything foundation on the archaeological level. So the structure where, because we did this cantilever space, was going towards the forum where people could sit and stay. So it becomes really space for, not only for the tourists, because another thing that is very important now, no Roman goes there. It's very difficult, if not impossible. Only tourists go there. And so we wanted to give some space to the Roman as well. So people can go, can sit, can stay. And the structure was in laminated wood, cantilevered, and the diagonal were just fixed on the wall that we couldn't touch. And this is another piece. On the bottom you have Cesare, the other, on the top you have Augusto. And this is Largo Corrado Ricci. Now, what happened, because the discussion is only about, we submitted the project to all the authorities. All the other part that I will tell you, they asked minor changes. On the Via dei Fori Imperiali, there was a great discussion for 2 different reasons. One, because we narrowed the section of the street, because this wooden platform were going on top of the street, so the street was becoming 8 meters, 8 meters and a half, just for the bus, because it is already a kind of pedestrian street, only the bus pass by. And this was so they tell us, you are changing the perception of the road. Yes. And we said, okay, what's the matter? We are keeping the road as sign on the urban design. So the memory of what was the history is there. We are not canceling the street or erasing a memory of what it was. Because for us, what is important for us as architect, as urban planner, is the fact that the city keeps memory, like Piazza Navona is the memory of what it was before. So Rome is full of this palimpsest moment where the old city keep the memory, and no, the new city keep the memory of the old city. So we said, ma, what's the problem? And said, no, you are changing the perception. So you are changing the nature. The road is listed. This is the only case in the world, I think. So they asked us to keep the idea of this terrace cantilever, the rhythm from one to the other one, blah, blah, but to make two things. One, not ephemeral, so not in wood, but in stone. That I can understand. This request I can understand, because the wood was a kind of shortcut to make this ephemeral in the way to try to bypass the problem of the role of this road. I have to tell you guys that we talk about the role of this road, I think, since I was born. There were been in Rome, because it's a very, very great discussion, because as a very political symbol, no? Because it's been done under fascists. So, and then they tried in the 70s, Cederna, they tried to cancel the road. There is still a very strong movement again for the demolition of the road and for the full excavation of the area. But there is another way. I don't think this is correct, but if we have to take a position. We think it is correct to keep the road because it's these palimpsests of the city. It's correct that the road is there, but it's also correct that you can change the role of the road. It doesn't have to be like for the parade, like in the fascist military period. No, it can be narrow, can be pedestrian, can change the role. But this is what was not accepted. Also because this government now is again right. So there was a very complicated moment. So they wanted to be solid, to be wider. And so we are changing the project. So we are removing the marciapiedi, the sidewalk. So we propose, okay, you want it wider? We do all wide. So you don't have this section of the road. We cancel the sidewalk, and it's a completely pedestrian space, enormous pedestrian space with this cantilever terrace. So we're keeping the same concept. So, and I think this will be accepted. No one wanted to open a real discussion about that. We asked to make a public discussion about the road, about the role of the road, why we had to keep it so wide. But no one really wants to open because it's a very complicated issue that has never been resolved. Anyway, if you succeed in doing this project, it will really change because it will be all flat, with bench, with trees, so it will be really a new public space for the city. So in a way, we feel that we are doing a good job for the city, a good job for the public space and for the citizen. The second part of the Vie dei Fori Imperiali, as I was telling you before, is completely different because is where there was the Velia. Do you remember the demolition photos? There was a Velia. Velia was a hill. Let's call it hill, a small hill. That was connecting the Esquilino that was going down to the Massenzio Basilica. You know which is Basilica di Massenzio, no? Massenzio Basilica is a beautiful building in brick, blah, blah. So, and Velia was, let's say, the last piece of nature, so-called cuneo dell'Appia Antica, that from the Appia Antica was arriving in the city center. So it's a completely different. You don't have any remain. And you have Basilica di Massenzio, Tempio di Venere, Roma, but you don't have Fori Imperiali. You don't have nothing to look at underground. And you have two big walls, which are also beautiful in a way, made by an architect. It's called Muñoz. Two big walls of brick, one with the geographical map on the one going towards Colosseum on the right, and on the left you have the beautiful wall. There are two retaining walls. because it's being cut. So those two walls have a structural role, not only urban role. So we did change the idea. These are the original drawing of the wall, of the Muñoz. And you see what is interesting, sorry, go back, that there were trees on top of it. So it was a really retaining wall with a landscape on top of the wall because it was coming down. It's still like this, Villa Rivaldi. So we decided to do a promenade, a boulevard. So we enrich this part of the Via dei Fori Imperiali with trees, so that it becomes a passeggiata, a boulevard in the city center. And in the last piece, that is Salvi, Via Salvi, you see the small scarpata, the piece on the right side. That is where the city, because the city on the north is higher, much higher. So there is a very steep piece on the right where there is a green area. And so, no, sorry. So I go back. So we decided to design a ramp that was going down from the top of the hill to the Colosseum. At this moment, on this area, we are doing archaeological survey. Of course, we have to do it because at the bottom, if you have been there, you see there are some important piece of wall that brick wall that apparently are part of the Terme di Tito. So we have to do archaeological survey. So we are digging. There is an archaeology that is digging there. Now it could change, of course. It's part. I mean, if you are Roman, you know that it can change. Also, Città del Sole, you were mentioning, we have been digging for 2 years. 2 years, we found a lot of things, and now they're open a museum. So we had to change some positions, some foundations. So if you're Roman, this is not a problem. You know that there is the risk that you have to change the project, especially if you are here. I mean, so if you have to change, we will change. I mean, it's a part of our history. So this is, we are digging here. And then now the archaeological walkway, which is the part that was more curated by Orizzontale, which is this ring that goes all around, for which we designed some furniture. Now they are changing the furniture, yes. But still, I think they're, in this case, are even better. But it's the original competition drawing. This was a board. So to think that, and already it's changing. If you go to Via di San Teodoro now, they are narrowing the car part and enlarging very much the sidewalk. And so we are adding trees and furniture and benches. So with the idea that this archaeological part, this archaeological so-called ring, becomes a path, a real path, because there is this street, Via di San Teodoro, I think is one of the most beautiful streets in Rome. San Teodoro, Foro Romano, and then you turn and then you go up to the Campidoglio. I really invite you to do this. It's one of the most beautiful, beautiful paths you can do, because you go along the Palatino, and you have the Palatino on the right with all the palace, beautiful. And then you have an arch, and then you see the Campidoglio there. So it's really beautiful. And no one goes there because there is, not only Roman, no one goes there, never, because it's not on the touristical path, but still is a really beautiful. So it's changing already. And this is a view towards, this is the Curia, Tempio di Giove. And then these are the structural interventions, so the urban scale and the scale of the urban design. Then there are the singular intervention, the puntual intervention, which are smaller, but still quite important. One is the footbridge that connects Santi Luca and Martina. You know that Santi Luca and Martina is a beautiful church, beautiful, di Pietro da Cortona, by Pietro da Cortona, which now, when I was young, it was connected, everything was connected. You can walk, I remember I gave appointment overnight to friends at Santi Luca and Martina because another beautiful spot. Now you cannot arrive there unless from the other Carcere Mamertino, because from the Via dei Fori Imperiali is completely disconnected because they made a lot of excavation. So another purpose of the competition was to reconnect what was disconnected. So this is the footbridge that connects Santi Luca and Martina. And also underneath here, you see in the brick volume that exists there, it was kind of foundation. It's not the foundation of the church. Has been built by Giovannoni after the church. And they now is completely abandoned. There is no ceiling, there is no roof. And I wanted to transform in an info point, reception point, that can have a sense. To be honest, we propose in the competition, because sometimes we also propose, we wrote in the description, relazione, that we didn't agree to maintain this volume that was completely incoherent in relation to the other thing, especially to the Forum of Cesare, because inside you see the base of the column. So we propose, but why we don't demolish this 20th century volume, that this is no reason to keep, and reinforce the presence of these columns of the Forum of Cesare. They think that is important to maintain. So we did a new structure on the roof, and we did inside an info point where you can sit, you can take a rest, new glass, new roof, new window. So we propose to have, you see that as the floor is made, there are some important piece of marble by the forum. We propose to have a system of steps that surround the space with all the electrical blah blah structure, so not to keep everything, and also they become a sitting system to see the movie, to the video of the site. And this is the connection from one to the other. This is another small, and nothing is small. The info point of the Fori Imperiali. This exists already, something very awful. If you go along Via dei Fori Imperiali, immediately after Largo Corrado Ricci, you enter in a wall. That wall is very interesting. It's a wall that has been done again during the excavation. It's very interesting because you enter in this wall, and then you have some small houses with linen that have to dry, so you have a completely different condition. So you understand very soon that this wall has been built to give cleanness to the city, because they were poor houses. Because the city center of Rome is not a monumental city center. Differently from Paris. For example, the city center of Rome is popular, has been, no Palazzo Farnese, of course there are some monumental buildings, but the fabric is not monumental. So there were some poor houses of the 18th century, so just to put this wall in front of it, that we found very funny. And so this is the wall, and you see that the wall doesn't have any role unless to enclose a space to hide the poverty of what was behind. So we decided to reinforce the wall, so we detach from the wall again, because the wall was conceived to be singular and independent. And we put an L-shape, I go back for a moment. You see an L-shaped pavilion, let's call it pavilion, in wooden, laminated wood, carbonized, so black. And then there is the volume on the right side is a cafeteria. On the left side is a info point, ticket center, something like that. And then there is a patio where you can stay, you can sit. So it's and then a lot of restroom, because one of the problem of the area, there are not enough toilets. That is true. So this is, and outside, and this is incredible, they accepted it. So outside we put a loggia. So the competition asked to have a volume outside where where the guides for this enormous tour full of people, blah, 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 can meet in closed space. We said, no, we don't want to do. So this is also, I think, a lesson. Sometimes when we do competition, we go not against. We try to force the request of the competition if we don't agree. So we said always in the notes, we said, we don't agree in putting a volume. We tried to put a small Miesian pavilion. Nothing was able to keep the scale of the site. So it looks like the info point that you see in the city that are already there. No, it's very small thing that. So it's okay, no, let's change the scale. And to be honest, we work with a very great professor, Viscogliosi. I don't know if you know him, Viscogliosi. Also, it was, now we have to do big. So he said, okay, let's be brave. Let's do a big. So we did a loggia that is not closed. We wrote always in the notes, we can close it 9 meters. We can close it if you really want it closed, but we suggest not to close. And so it's a loggia that is, in a way, it's a gathering point. For shadows, we study the shadows because so people can meet there. So all the guides can meet there with the people, the tourists, the citizen. It's a gathering place. It's also a resting place, even if Parco del Colosseo asked to lower a little bit. So we lowered 30 centimeters. So completely stupid request, but it's okay. And then not to put furniture. Anyway, this is approved. So this is something that we will do together with the info point inside. And all so asking, you asked me what is now the situation. Via dei Fori Imperiali, we are changing the project. I'm sure that we are approved. This is approved. The other one that I show you, Al Foro di Cesare, is approved. The inside info point is approved. For the ramp system, we are doing the archaeological excavation. And the system I'll show you. The problem, these are the drawings, and this is the landscape. This is quite important because also the landscape follow the system of context. So 3 different contexts, 3 different landscape system. So on the last part, which is the one along the Veglia, is more natural without maintenance. Along Via dei Fori Imperiali, they were potted. Also, another change, which I think is much better. In the first project along Via dei Fori Imperiali, the plants, the trees, were planted in pot. Now they asked us, which is better, to plant it in the ground. So it's much better. So there are something that is going better, something that is going less better, but anyway. And then the second, along the Colosseum Square, urban road trees and ground over plants. So also the landscape follow the different contexts, and it's changing also the landscape now. You see, this is a drawing of the landscape. The landscape designer is called Open Fabric. They are very good, and they come from Genova and Milano. And these are they made a very long research on the historical plant of Rome, which is very nice. So to give a sense again, the superimposition of something that was already there. And then this is the last 2 issue. These were the furniture that we designed during the competition. They asked us to change it with more rigorous, and in this case I quite agree. No, I quite agree. So we did redesign very similarly, but more rigorous the structure, always with horizontal, of course. So there were, and then we kept the 2 benches. They loved it. The ring one and the linear one. We are putting them on the square along Via dei Fori Imperiali, and they will be in concrete, light concrete. And then there are the system signage. And then 2 final words about the materials and the structure. The materials are very Roman. And now are more Roman than before, to be honest, because now we are raising the wood. That is not very Roman. This is the only thing that, in a way, I understand. The wood is not Roman, and also is very, is a little, it's fragile. It's more fragile. Because there are so many people there that could be ruined quite easy. Anyway, we use San Pietrino, Porfido, Basalto, all materials that are part of the city. And now between the 2 forum, Calcestre. Calcestre is a very, very famous in France because it's a kind of powder of sand that is put together with calce, so not concrete, a more light material. And then, and this is the structure. So this is how the structure worked for the terrace. Now that we are changing the system, we are cantilever anyway. We are doing, of course, foundation in concrete. So they're doing, in a way, is more brave now because they're asking us to make it stable and perennial project. So we're doing foundation in concrete. We are digging everywhere. So we see what happens. The main problem of this process is not, in a way, is the discussion about the role of the part of the cultural problem. But the main problem is that we are in charge of this phase. There is the feasibility phase, all the approval and almost finished. But then all the detailed design is not in our commission. So that is really grave. It really doesn't work because, especially in a project of public works, when the detail is so important, if they also think in the info point how the wood connects with the other part, this is a wrong process. We are protesting a lot, asking for the artistic direction, of detail design. But the problem is that it is in charge of other architects, and so they feel that we don't trust them. So, I mean, there is a moment of diplomacy to deal with, but we hope that everything will go well. And I think this is the last one. Yes, and this is the group. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Wait. Yes, it's working, Fabio? Does it work? Can you hear me? Lala? Yes, now you hear me. So thanks, Claudia. It was really impressive. I'm impressed by the scale of the project. I mean, you're ruling almost the entire site. It's fantastic. And I imagine like the pressure and the responsibility about that, because as you correctly explained, many people discuss about that area. It's a never-ending discussion. Yes, yes. And so I think feeling the responsibility of that must be kind of intimidating, but
I think there is a very strong, what is changing now, there is a very strong political will,
sì.
in the sense that the mayor wants to do it and wants to open the construction site in August, which is really, I think, impossible because the detailed design is not done still. We are taking the final approval. So, but still there is a strong political will to open at least the construction site before the end of the year. So, and the money, there are money because of course now in the change in the project from wood to stone, it costs a lot more and useless to explain. Because certo, if you pass to wood, wooden platform like in the beach to solid stone concrete foundation, it costs 3 times more. So they're looking for the money, but they will find the money, I'm sure.
Who's funding the project?
There are basically a mixed up of finance, part of PNRR, part of Jubilee, also Jubilee. And now as the Lotto 2 is the first part of Via dei Fori Imperiali till Largo Corrado Ricci is costing much more.
Yeah, sure.
For this request, they are taking all the funds for the other pieces to this part, because it's the part the mayor wants to be done quickly, because it's a very important symbolic moment. So,
yeah, it is a pity that the whole procedure didn't allow the project to be realized for the Jubilee.
But you know, there is a very long, the problem of, I think the problem of Rome, more than others, not so Milan is complicated, is the approval process is very long, because there in this area, there are at least 2 major power. One is Superintendents Archeologica, Superintendents of the city of Rome. And then there is the Superintendents Archeologica of the state. And the 2 power collide and fight and don't agree on anything. They very often don't even, when we are in the meeting, they don't speak each other. So there is a very great conflict of power, of political left-right. So it's very complicated. So you are squeezed in the middle of a very complicated process.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
we are used
great.
to that because with
Yeah.
Palazzo dei Diamanti Sgarbi, we found ourselves in a
Yes.
very complicated project as well.
So
So
you're
now we said, okay,
experienced.
maybe it's our destiny or why.
Yeah. Okay, so as usual, I collected a number of questions by the students and I made a kind of a selection. And that's funny. What do you think? This is written by a student. What do you hope we take away from your lecture? What do you think the students can take away from your lecture? Like the lessons learned.
I think there is a lot of things to take away. First of all, that the project of architecture, especially because we are American mainly, I think, if not all, and working in Europe is completely different. Because here you have a lot of layers, a lot of complexity in terms of history, of superimposition. This is similar everywhere, Madrid, Barcelona, Parigi, here. I mean, it's where history can really overwhelm. But so you can learn that architecture is not just scratch from zero, but is very often you have to take out from the site what you find. So it's a way of listening the site, a way of experience the site. We study a lot before doing a project, a lot. We study the site, we study the people who are in the site, we study the history of the site, we go there, we work there. So because we don't believe, of course it's our approach, we don't believe that architecture is ground zero. There's always a relation to be taken with the context where you work.
There was somebody interested in, would you say that this intervention might influence future historic preservation designs for other cities? So it could be like a good practice to be applied somewhere else.
Could be, but there are still already some good practice in the world. It could be, even if this case is so unique, because the site, or this specific site of Rome, is really unique. So in a way, yes or no? Yes, because I think that the way of putting, also in this sense, the like structure that we are making here and there, the two info points, the way you can create some pavilion in the site, yes. The urban design is so specific that it's very complicated.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's such a unique context.
A unique context.
It's gonna teach itself, and
exactly.
That's it. Yes, maybe it could teach other sides of the town.
Yes,
I mean, Rome
maybe.
is one of the city with the biggest historical centers ever had in contemporary periods. So it might be a good lesson for other sites. There was another question. This student was interested in how do you balance the tension between innovation and preservation when working on such a historically sensitive ground?
This is a very good question.
It's a tough question. I know.
This is valid not only for this project, but in general for the.
Sì.
We are now doing a lot of projects in. I don't know why, it's out of a sudden, in different contexts, existing contexts, listed contexts. So I think that there is the respect of the site, which is a conservation moment. So you have to select what you want to maintain, what you want to give to the people after you, what you want that remain in history. So usually we work with historian, and for example, we don't think that everything has to be preserved. This is the idea of the palimpsests. When you work in a very complex site, you have to choose what is important. And this is a very important moment of preservation. Then when you do a project, we are in the contemporary era. So of course we have a contemporary language. We cannot design chaptels, no? So it's again the way you work on the site. So there is not, I think, a recipe. Is a way to keep memory and work with this memory and reinforce it. And we had this discussion, enormous discussion for another project that was Palazzo dei Diamanti. This is a very important building in the Renaissance in Italy, where we were making an addition, and it was a enormous discussion because they said that we were ruining Palazzo Diamanti, demolishing Palazzo Diamanti. We said, no, we are respecting Palazzo Diamanti, we are making addition. So there was a very, very great discussion on the newspaper. So the point is how you do things, how you decide to keep something, you have to choose. Always there is a risk. There is no solution. There is a risk, you have to take a risk, you have to decide, okay, for me it's important, for the story of the city, for the memory of the city, it is important to preserve. For example, I did you the example of the road. For us, it was important not the width of the road, it was important the existing of the road, the direction of the road, the memory of the road, because even if it is fascism, it is always important because it's part of the history. So we don't want to be ideological. So for us, it was an important trace of the city, but for us was not important the width. So we decided what was important for us. So we found someone else that is empowered. They said, no, for us it's important also the width. As they have the power to tell you what to do, of course.
There is also another question, which is about if you felt any pressure from the city, which could mean not only from the institutions, but also from the citizens.
No, yes and no, not during the competition. Now we did a presentation to the city of Monti. Monti is a Rione, is a small neighborhood, and for Largo Corrado Ricci, they organized a meeting last week, and I found myself with a lot of people, a population, and women and men, very Roman. As you know, Roman people are quite not necessarily gentle. And so I had to explain and to discuss, and there was also the municipality with me, and it was kind of interesting see how people take care, they love the city, they want to make it beauty, so they want to understand how it works, if there were the decor for the restaurant or not, there are benches, if only for tourists or also for citizens, very aware of the role of the tourism now, which are, in their words, destroying the city, removing the inhabitants. This is a problem for the city center of Rome, because very few inhabitants are left there. A lot of B&B, so there is a kind of discussion about what the public space is for, who is for, so yeah.
It is kind of interesting because the other formal lectures given here at the Rome Center, the community hasn't been involved at all in the projects, probably because of the time pressure.
Maybe.
There were projects taking like a few months to be realized, but it's nice that in this case the local community is at least informed.
They organize the municipio. Rome is divided in a neighborhood, and then municipio organized this meeting with the population.
True, it makes absolutely sense.
Yeah.
There was another question about the materials. What is the process that led you to choosing certain materials rather than others? And especially the prefabricated materials were involved. I think students are also curious about how you come up to choose those or the other materials, and on and on and on.
Basically, there were three choices. One is for the wood. I told you why we choose the wood, because it was asking for temporary intervention. And the only temporary materials that you can remove easily is a platform of wood, of course. Even if in the competition project, whereas in the platforms, there were also slab of stone. Anyway, the wood has been chosen is mainly for the reason of the temporality. The other materials are Roman, very simple like that. Materials that comes from Roma. Roma has a lot of volcano stone, so it's basalto, peperino, which are all volcano stone, are gray, no? Comes from the lava. And the third is the wood in the structure that are carbonized. In that sense, we use the carbonized wood because, first of all, it's more silent in terms of perception. Second, it doesn't change that info point, that pavilion are permanent. So the carbonized wood is stable, doesn't change image over time, doesn't become gray, and then so we thought it was a good choice to make it also. When you enter, we want to give the main role to the wall, to put it in the background. So it was a background idea.
But were you superimposed by the superintendency to use certain materials?
No.
No. You see, that's funny because the former project designed by One Works, the superintendency was mad about the choice of the materials and they really imposed.
Really?
See, so that's, thanks God you didn't have those instructions because it gave you a little bit of freedom, at least. There is one last question, which is a general question, more about your, let's say, background and experience. There's a student asking, what is your advice in designing a space that brings together a generational community? I think it has to do with the idea of designing public spaces that are able to attract different target groups, not only youngers, but older, elderly, and stuff like that. What is the recipe out of that? It's a tough question, I know, but I chose it on purpose.
Because we have been thinking a lot about the public space. We also wrote a book. This is called The Architecture of Public Space, with part book. By the way, is only in English, so you can have it. You should buy in the university, I think.
We buy tomorrow.
Yeah. And we did, it's not about our work. We did two books with part book, both in English. One is Structures, which is about our work. The second one, which is Architecture of Public Space, comes from the idea that Italian city have beautiful public space. So we start to ask why it works so well, what happens. So the research is not only on the public space, but the relation between architecture and public space. So we did several typology about porticos, loggia, gallery, suspended square. So how architecture creates public space. And we think, so public space in itself doesn't mean so much because it can be avoided, but doesn't work. Why the public space works? Because as programs around, because sometimes it's beautiful architecture around, beautiful or not, public space works if there are buildings around, unless it's a playground. My playground is another issue. We did a beautiful playground at Piazza Fontana in the periphery of Milano, but still a playground. Playground is a different concept of public space. It's something where the program are inside the space. So you can have games for the children. You can have, like, the beautiful project like Superkilen in Copenhagen. Superkilen is a fantastic public space where there are tables for all people to play chess, where there are fountain for the Muslim, where there are a lot of activities for the citizen. Still, so this is something that activates the city, because the public space to work has to be active. Active can be, you can activate a public space with the surrounding architecture. You can activate public space with inside actions, but it works only if people go there for a reason. Otherwise, it's just an empty space, so it doesn't work. So this is, I think, very important to remember.
We have a lot of students that are dealing with public spaces, playgrounds and squares and stuff like that. So this could be a good advice. Maybe I suggest to
there are beautiful book on playground, by the way. One Noguchi, there are beautiful book.
And my suggestion is to go on Labics website and have a look at their projects a little bit more carefully, and maybe you will receive some other inspirations. Va bene, Claudia. So I think it was really good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your inspiring lecture. I'm sure it's going to be really inspiring also for the students, because
I hope so.
Yeah, it's also about the process. Our students, they do a lot of analysis. And before they start designing, which is really almost half of the semester, they really want to design, but then we ask them like, no, look at the context, read about it.
It's very important.
Yes, and so now they are learning that it's really not only just because we are crazy instructors.
We do a lot of research before doing any projects. Also, we are teaching now in Cornell University, and we forbid to make sketches. I want to explain it better.
Yes, please.
Because when you do sketch, we don't forbid. They can do sketch, of course, but when you do a sketch, you have the sensation that you grasp an image, a form, something. But we prefer model, and we always say sketch can lie, model don't lie. Because a physical model cannot lie. It's there.
True. True.
It is a scale, a small scale of the building. A sketch can be super cool, but then if you have a good hand, you do beautiful sketch, but can be an awful building. While a model never lie. So in this sense, we forbid them to do sketch. They can do sketch, but they have to bring model. Because if you have a good hand, you do beautiful sketch, and it can be an awful building. I'm sure, I can swear.
This is another interesting lesson, because our students, they don't create many handmade models.
They're very important.
It should be really the basic of concept
Paper
development.
model, we ask them to do paper model from the beginning of the studio, subito, immediately. Paper model, very thin, but then we cut, and then it's very, because the model is physical. You see it. You see the space, you see the structure, you see it.
True, true. Let's keep it in mind. Va bene, Claudia. So
Grazie
once
mille.
again, thanks
Thank
a lot.
To you. I hope you enjoyed and have a good lunch.
So when the next time you will passing along the promenade, leading to the Colosseum, think about all the things that she explained. Use your imagination and come in a few years visiting us, and you will see everything done, hopefully. All right. So thanks for being with us. It's now over. Take a rest, and we meet for the first and last design lecture, which is going to be the 17th, as far as I remember. Okay?
Grazie.
Enjoy. Ciao.